At a rescue facility, staff members gathered to observe a German Shepherd giving birth, anticipating a beautiful moment. However, an unexpected turn of events occurred. The offspring that emerged weren't typical canine pups. Their proportions, the unusual quality of their coats, and even the weak sounds they produced, all of it seemed abnormal. As the veterinarian inspected the newborns, her hands shook, recognizing that something was deeply wrong. Outside, icy gusts howled while the final beams of daylight disappeared beyond the facility's entrance. An aging, weathered pickup arrived hastily, and from it emerged a man whose complexion was drained and worried. Speaking little, he opened the rear passenger door, revealing what lay inside. Curled atop a ragged covering was a German Shepherd. Her respiration labored, her coat caked in dirt. Her skeletal frame was visible beneath her fur, and her gaze conveyed suffering and weariness. Discovered her alongside the main road. She refused to budge. I believe she's expecting. Linda, the facility's administrator, promptly summoned help. Within the medical area, Dr. Harris appeared shortly after. A brief assessment verified the situation. The dog was carrying young and nearing delivery. Her nutritional state is critically poor, Dr. Harris observed quietly. We'll call her Grace, Linda suggested gently. Given what she's endured, it's the perfect name. The initial evening was strangely silent. Grace remained coiled on her covering, her golden brown eyes trained on the entrance as though anticipating someone. She rejected all food. Her stare stayed fixed on the dim corridor. Then suddenly, she released a threatening rumble. Resonant, cautionary, maternal. Come daybreak, her conduct became increasingly unusual. She behaved as though protecting something valuable. Her frame rigid and watchful, thunder echoed through the atmosphere as ominous clouds assembled overhead. Grace moved in repeated patterns. Her respiration labored. Linda observed her agitated motions. Upon opening the entrance, a loud bark reverberated through the passageway. Dr. Harris, Linda called urgently. Within moments, he appeared quickly. She's entering labor, he announced. Time elapsed. The timepiece advanced toward the witching hour, and the tempest outside grew fiercer. Then emerged a noise, delicate, vulnerable, resembling a weak cry. However, as Dr. Harris bent nearer, his excitement transformed into bewilderment. Hold on, he murmured. The form seemed incorrect. The coat was more shadowy, more compact, and the frame felt abnormally weighted. This resembles nothing like a puppy. Successively, additional newborns arrived, yet all appeared identical. Not one bore similarity to ordinary puppies. Electrical discharge illuminated the scene, casting unsettling silhouettes on the surfaces. Something's amiss, Dr. Harris muttered. Grace released a gentle cry, wrapping her frame defensively around the peculiar offspring. What species are they? Linda's tone wavered. I'm uncertain, he said quietly. However, whatever their nature, they aren't puppies. The offspring rested clustered beneath a heating source. Their frames were diminutive, yet something was unmistakably abnormal regarding them. Their appendages were more abbreviated, their coats remarkably thick and dark gray in color. Dr. Harris studied the initial one's features. The characteristics were peculiar. Its snout was compressed, its auditory organs poorly formed. I've witnessed nothing comparable to this. Grace whined quietly, her gaze containing terror yet also intense resolve. These creatures were her offspring. Their skeletal framework feels unusual, Dr. Harris observed. Lightning illuminated the exterior. Their biological structure, it appears as though they've undergone modification. Modification, Linda echoed. He affirmed with a grave expression. Through genetic means. I've encountered this phenomenon previously, years past during my tenure near the scientific zone. Certain laboratories conducted experiments on creatures for crossbreed endurance and defense mechanism trials. Thunder resonated once more. You suspect she fled from such a laboratory? Dr. Harris remained silent. His lack of response provided confirmation enough. Then one offspring gradually revealed its eyes, emitting a subtle luminescence in the darkness. "Merciful heavens," he breathed. "What procedures have they subjected you to?" Come morning, rumors circulated rapidly throughout the personnel. Grace's enclosure had been isolated during the night. Anxiety had begun spreading uncontrollably. Dr. Harris attempted to reassure everyone. "The young are distinctive yet healthy."
Nobody face danger.
Grace was cautiously relocated to a compact, dimly illuminated chamber at the building's distant extremity. As the entrance secured behind them, Grace raised her skull, her frame tensing. Momentarily, she emitted a quiet, shaking cry. The subsequent evening, Dr. Harris remained in his workspace, his thoughts replaying the vision of the luminous eyes. Upon entering the chamber, Grace immediately became alert. He raised the third offspring carefully, moving his digits along its flank, and then he detected it. Something minute and solid implanted under the dermal layer near its upper limb. He performed a precise cut. A tiny metallic disc gleamed beneath the illumination. It was an identification chip. Rather than a conventional identification code, it displayed an etched symbol. Project E9 and a number sequence below. Project E9, he uttered softly. Years prior, he'd encountered whispers regarding a secret research initiative experimenting on creatures to develop crossbreeds immune to illness, atomic exposure, even severe temperature conditions. Linda's tone trembled. "You believe she participated in that initiative?" "Negative," he stated softly. "She fled from it." He processed the identification code through numerous creature databases. Nothing emerged aside from a single detail, a worn symbol imprinted near the edge. "Helios Research," he announced. "A biological technology installation beyond the municipality. Operations ceased 8 years previous following creature welfare infractions." He navigated through preserved documents, eventually retrieving a declassified documentation. Every image contained a timestamp and identifier. He advanced further until locating a recognizable countenance. A German shepherd displaying intense golden-brown eyes designated E9F. "That's her identity," he breathed. "Grace." Commenced with a telephone communication. "This is Agent Keller from the Department of Agricultural and Biotechnical Affairs. We've obtained an undisclosed notification regarding an unrecorded creature delivery involving potential biological hazard markers. We're dispatching a unit promptly." Linda became immobile. "They're aware," she uttered breathlessly. Dark transportation vehicles approached the facility entrance. Individuals in black attire emerged. "We've obtained information regarding genetically altered specimens on these premises," Agent Keller declared. Dr. Harris advanced forward, obstructing the passageway. "You cannot simply intrude here." Keller's demeanor was expressionless. "That's conditional upon our discoveries." Grace detected something instantaneously. She positioned herself with a threatening rumble, her frame protecting the young. The operatives advanced past them, elevating their detection devices. The equipment signaled immediately. Verified irregular genetic patterns. Classification Level 3. Keller pivoted sharply. "These markers correspond with documentation from a terminated initiative. Project E9. Grace vocalized intensely, the noise reverberating through the confined passage. "Tranquilize her," Keller commanded. "Absolutely not," Linda exclaimed. Before the operatives could proceed, Grace propelled forward. "Not for aggression, but for defense." "Cease," Dr. Harris declared loudly. However, Agent Keller showed no reaction. "That creature displays hostility and is classified. Incapacitate her." An operative discharged a weapon. The projectile narrowly missed. Grace vocalized aggressively, propelling forward to repel them. She secured one offspring carefully by the neck scruff and rushed toward the lateral entrance. Linda had already activated the crisis mechanism. The metal barriers paused sufficiently for Grace to pass through. Beyond the structure, precipitation commenced. Grace raced across the grounds, the offspring secured defensively in her mouth. Lightning flashed overhead, revealing her outline. She arrived at the barrier and commenced excavating beneath it, her limbs ripping through saturated earth. With one final frantic attempt, she compressed through the opening and disappeared into the tempest. Linda collapsed onto her knees, breathing heavily. "She's departed." Dr. Harris remained in the downpour. "Incorrect," he stated gently. "She's defending them, the sole method she understands." The tempest continued through the darkness. Grace's outline moved between vegetation, her exhalation apparent in the frigid atmosphere. The offspring she transported cried softly in her grasp. Behind her location, the noise of motors thundered through the blackness. The pursuit had commenced. She located a small cavity beneath an aged oak. Cautiously, she positioned the offspring down, cleansing its diminutive features before coiling defensively around it. She could detect them approaching. Utterances, movement sounds, the technological drone of heat detection equipment. The projection of a portable light passed within close proximity of her concealment location. Then thunder erupted overhead, disturbing a collection of birds. The interruption proved sufficient. The operative redirected away. The daybreak arrived overcast and oppressive. Dr. Harris and Linda trudged through the mire, their portable lights scarcely penetrating the mist. Then a noise, gentle, delicate, a whimper. He pursued it through dense vegetation until they entered a small open space. Present, beneath the twisted roots of a toppled oak, was Grace. She was tightly coiled around her offspring. One young creature lay unmoving adjacent to her. The other moved feebly. Grace elevated her skull, her amber eyes connecting with theirs. She didn't emit warnings. She merely observed, exhausted, weary, yet unafraid. "Grace," Dr. Harris breathed. "You're protected now. Allow me to assist." Grace's frame quivered. She gazed down at the deceased offspring, prodding it gently before releasing a quiet, sorrowful cry that penetrated the quietness. Radio communication originated from their rear. The operatives were near. Grace's auditory organs twitched. Then she nudged the smallest surviving offspring toward him, a gesture of confidence more significant than language. "Excellent canine," he breathed. His eyes moistening, weak utterances traveled through the mist. The operatives were advancing. "We've exhausted time," Linda whispered with urgency. Dr. Harris crouched adjacent to Grace. "They engineered you to serve as an instrument. However, you transformed into something more powerful. You transformed into a parent." He reached into his garment compartment and extracted the small metallic device. Project E9. He examined it before discarding it into the waterway adjacent to them. "No additional experiments," he breathed. "No additional abominations." Grace's auditory organs perked. Dr. Harris encountered her stare. "Depart," he breathed. "Flee while possible." Grace paused before she pivoted and moved into the mist, her offspring following behind like phantoms. Moments subsequently, the operatives appeared. Keller's penetrating tone cut through the vapor. "Where is her location?" Dr. Harris encountered his gaze. "She didn't survive." Dr. Harris remained stationary, observing into the mist where Grace had vanished. For the initial occasion in years, he experienced both grief and tranquility, because he understood she was liberated. Weeks transpired and the disorder gradually dissolved into quietness. The governmental investigation had concluded. Formally, Grace and her offspring had expired during the tempest. Informally, she was still present somewhere, surviving, liberated, and undomesticated. Dr. Harris frequently discovered himself positioned at the woodland's boundary. He had maintained his commitment, falsifying the documentation, eliminating the remaining information. Certain evenings, they would position nourishment near the vegetation boundary. They never observed her, yet the nourishment consistently vanished by daybreak. Months subsequently, correspondence arrived at the facility. No sender identification existed, merely a creased paper sheet with 7 words inscribed in irregular penmanship. "Inform the world she was never an abomination." Dr. Harris experienced an obstruction rising in his throat. "No, she wasn't," he breathed. She was an extraordinary occurrence. That evening, he positioned himself once more by the woodland's boundary. And precisely as he pivoted to depart, a recognizable noise interrupted the quietness. A resonant, dignified bark traveled on the breeze. He became motionless, a grin expanding across his features. Somewhere beyond, Grace was existing freely, nurturing her young beneath unlimited atmosphere, distant from confinement, distant from terror. He would relate it not as an account of science misdirected, but of a parent's devotion that challenged everything humanity had attempted to dominate.